John Felt here, and this is the Blue Water Outlook Weekly Weather Briefing, June 23rd, 2019. Across the country over the last week, you can see most of the precipitation, at least the significant precipitation, was over parts of the Missouri. These are the river basins here, so this was the Missouri, lower Ohio. Everywhere else it was fairly scattered in coverage. This is the popcorn type precipitation you see over the southeast U.S. almost every day during the summertime in a typical summer. And I think that's a key that we're trying to work our way into more of a summertime pattern compared to these widespread excessive rain events that we've seen so far this spring. Now we have plenty of moisture in many areas. Dew points are well into the 60s, into the 70s. Take a look at the mid to upper 70s in many areas. Very oppressive over parts of South Texas, has been for a number of days. But even the south central U.S., we're looking at dew points in the mid 70s. So that's definitely not comfortable air in those areas. Now, the overall vulnerability due to excessively wet soils has been getting a little bit better. Parts of the middle part of the U.S. here, we're getting back to normal in a few spots. We don't see nearly the dark blue shaded areas here that we saw a number of weeks ago. This is due to the rain in the last week. We still see in the middle part of the U.S. some areas, but overall we're going in the right direction for soils that have been very, very soggy over the Midwest ag region. But we still have quite a few rivers in flood. Blue flows are in the 99th percentile and black is above flood stage. So we're still quite active on those rivers, primarily responding to the rainfall over the lower Missouri or the lower Ohio and parts of the middle Mississippi. So the jet stream this week, it's not nearly as active as we saw earlier in spring. We do have some atmospheric energy moving out of the southwest U.S., going to be impacting parts of the south central U.S. Late this weekend, perhaps into early this week. But overall lack of atmospheric energy in many areas here, so that means more quiet weather. Now over the Pacific Northwest, we do have an onshore flow, and that's going to give us a daily chance of precipitation, generally light precipitation. Okay, let's look a little bit further out here and look at the big trends that we see. Basically what we're going to is a fairly large area of high pressure that's developing as we get into early July, and that's a summertime pattern. It's not nearly that widespread rain we saw. As we get into week 2, we also see that ridge of high pressure push back over to the western U.S., and that's going to bring hot temperatures over the western U.S. at that time. But overall, it does look like a change in pattern. This is your jet stream. That's where you would expect it to be this time of year, and that's going to quiet things down, I think, for parts of the nation. It's also going to bring some warmer air in some areas, but cooler air in other areas. I wanted to show you here, due to that wet soils, we're getting, that's going to keep temperatures down a bit cooler. It's also going to give us a daily chance of rainfall with those cool soils. If you read my post earlier this week about the science behind the summertime forecast, I mentioned that this is expected to continue well into the summer, holding temperatures down. Also wanted to point out the reversal of temperatures in the western U.S. We start off cool and showery, and we end up quite warm here, right here, as we get into the first week of July, around the 4th of July, and also quite dry at the same time. So precipitation this week, well, what a difference. This is probably not in the western U.S. where it's been dry, in this region right here, but overall it looks much quieter week than we've seen for many weeks. We have some localized heavy rain here and there. We have quite a bit of areas of scattered precipitation, but it's much less active than we've seen. Even though it looks less active going forward, we have a very busy flood situation going on, red being moderate, purple being major. So we've added some major once again over the lower Missouri and parts of the Mississippi. And if we take a look at that here, this gives you some example of the rain. This is on Grafton, just upstream from St. Louis. this is pretty typical. Once you start going down, it's going to take a lot of rain to bring it back up, but what it's doing is just sort of holding the river. It's stopping the recession. It's just sort of holding it up here temporarily for through the middle part of the week as that rain goes through, and then it goes on down. Now, the good news is I don't see any additional heavy rain in this period, so I do think once it starts to go down, this will continue a prolonged recession. But the impact of the rain that we had over the last week is taking that, slowing that down, and keeping it sort of steady here for a number of days. Now, if we look at St. Charles on the Missouri, lots of rain on the lower Missouri, and that's bringing St. Charles right back up here, close to where it was before. Not quite as high, but still way up there. So the lower Missouri is going to experience significant rises. If we look at the Ohio, well, the Ohio didn't get as widespread rain, but what you see here is you see strong within bank rises. And finally, on the lower Mississippi at Greenville, with all that water coming down, just basically sustained high flows until further notice, probably a couple weeks, all that water is going to have to go downstream. Okay, the extended forecast, well, I just wanted to point out on the 6 to 10 day, we have that ridge of high pressure in this region, and it pushes off to the west in week 2, bringing that unusually warm weather to the Pacific Northwest on week 2. If we look at precipitation, it's nothing as organized as we've seen in the past. It does still show over the middle part of the nation continuing chances of rain, and week 2, along with the hot temperatures, below normal precipitation. Now, as far as threats go, I just wanted to point out that we do have a severe threat. This is today, and this is on Monday, level 1 or slight. But this is very excessive rainfall today, which is Sunday, over this area here. And we look forward to the rest of the week, basically smaller areas of heavy rain and then excessive heat with that combination of the high dew point and temperatures. So overall, I do think we're going through a transition here from the active spring into the less active summer. But it is going to be coming in bits and spurts. But I do think that I don't see as much organized widespread rain this week or next than I have seen for the past 2 weeks. I hope that helps you in your planning, and I will be following up with a variety of topics this week, and we'll be talking with you again next weekend. Take care.